Mark chapter 15, verses 33 to 41. The death of Jesus. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, and at 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down," he said. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion, who stood there in front of Jesus, saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Some women were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger, and of Joseph, and Salome. In Galilee, these women had followed him and cared for his needs. Many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem were also there.
Well, we started reading Mark's Gospel in Sunday services back in 2019 when we were able to gather in the church building. And we looked at it a bit more last year in our online services, and we picked it up again at the beginning of 2021. And we've now reached the part of the Gospel which the whole of it has been building up to. Mark has now taken us to the cross and has put us in front of Jesus, beaten, naked, humiliated, nailed to it and left there to die. And I feel a tremendous sense of responsibility in working out what to say in a few minutes in an online service when you can't easily talk to me about what I say afterwards. I won't be going to the door of the church and saying goodbye to everyone. Although you could join us on Zoom at 11:30 a.m. if you're looking at this before that time has passed on the 21st of March. In the few short verses which Ebby just read, there's certainly a lot which could be of interest to a student of the Bible. For example, there's the presence of the women who we suddenly find, just as the book is about to draw to an end, have actually been with Jesus since the days of his ministry in the Galilee and who have travelled up to Jerusalem with him. And this is really interesting and worthy of study. There are also the numerous potential allusions to Old Testament texts in here. Psalm 22, which Jesus quotes, the suffering servant of Isaiah, and perhaps some more as well. Those could be pursued and asked what they think they're doing hanging around in Mark chapter 15. There's also the tearing of the temple curtain and all that might mean. And on top of those, there are depths here which I feel we could never fully excavate, even if we had all of the time in the world. For here, Mark takes us into deep darkness as the land becomes shrouded from noon. The darkness of creation's mourning. The darkness of the judgment of God. The darkness of the separation of the Son from the Father. All of these things are worthy of reflection. Mark, our author, however, is not himself delving into any of those things, and I feel today that I should stick closely with him. And so when I ask myself, so what is he doing, this author? I think the answer is this. Mark is putting us in front of Jesus on the cross so that we might see his agony and see his pain, and so that we might ask ourselves, what am I going to do with what I'm looking at here? We already know that he is giving himself as a ransom for many. We already know that he's been given a cross to carry that was meant for someone else and handed a sentence that he doesn't deserve. All of this we have followed as Mark has parcelled out his gospel to us piece by piece, laying out a trail which has led us to here, to the place called Golgotha. And Jesus is in agony. Verse 34, at 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I don't think it's right to tone this down, as some do, by saying that Jesus is quoting from Psalm 22, which, sure, while it starts off in pain, ends up in glory. Some say Jesus is full of hope here by quoting this. But just follow the trajectory of this gospel. It is the slow but sure abandonment of Jesus. First by his disciples, then by his most vocal advocate, then by his enemies, and now, finally, ultimately, abandonment by his heavenly Father. He doesn't just feel forsaken, he is forsaken. This is pain beyond description. And so Mark gets you to stand there and watch it. And he wonders what you'll do with it. And he offers 2 reactions from those close by, and maybe one of these works for you. Maybe you identify with one of them. Many people have down the centuries which have passed since this took place. The first is that of the bystanders, curious people out to have a gander at a crucifixion. They hear Jesus' cry and they feel real and genuine sympathy for him. They think that he's calling for Elijah. They misunderstand. And because there were rumours around at the time that Elijah would return, they decide that to see if they can ease his pain and keep him going. A man offers Jesus a sponge soaked in wine vinegar, which he holds up to his mouth on a stick. Wine vinegar sounds a bit gross to us, but this was a drink which did quench your thirst and was a kind of a favourite drink among the lower classes. So they're not being mean to Jesus here. They're being kind. And they're not mocking him either, not now. I liked the way that Ebby read the man's words. Now leave him alone and let's see if Elijah comes to take him down. This is not mockery now. This is genuine concern. If there is a chance that Elijah might come and rescue him, well, let's give him his best shot at lasting until that happens. That's one reaction which I think many people have when they think about this scene. Jesus is clearly a victim here in this response, and that provokes a great deal of sympathy. But as with the man with the sponge, that reaction doesn't change you. At the end of the day, he just walked away. Well, Mark records another reaction, and my guess is that he wants to see if you might share it. And this is the reaction of the Roman Centurion. So, reading again from verse 37, with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Now, this is quite a challenge to me, because if you were to ask me, what is the essential core of the Christian faith, and you only allowed me 5 words, I would go with the resurrection of the Messiah. The core of the Christian faith, and I'd be thinking of particularly 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 14 and Romans chapter 10 verse 9. Worth looking those up if you don't know already what they say. But here we have a man who hasn't seen the resurrection, and yet he feels able to say, surely this man was the Son of God. And based on what? Based on, verse 39, the way in which Jesus died. The centurion sees Jesus not as a victim, but as a victor. In his death, he sees the Son of God. Now, I don't know what it was about Jesus' death which provoked him to that conclusion. He was presumably a Gentile, as a Roman soldier, and therefore not schooled in the Bible as a Jewish man his age might be. He's not therefore thinking about the prophecies of the suffering servant and things like that. He can't have seen the tearing of the temple curtain. What you see behind me is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, surely the site of the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. Obviously the church wasn't there then, it was a quarry. But the Temple Mount was 2/3 of a kilometre that way to the east, with a city wall in the way. And even if Mark is talking about the outer curtain, which was torn, and not the inner one, it would have been on the other side of the temple building anyway. The centurion didn't see the tearing of the temple curtain to go on in drawing his conclusion. He's seen darkness fall over the land, and he's seen Jesus die with a cry, which was unusual. Most crucified people we know lingered on for quite a while and gradually faded away. No crying out at the end. But is this what persuaded the centurion to declare Jesus to be the Son of God? I confess I don't know for sure, but maybe I don't need to have all the details nailed down to see that this tells me that discipleship doesn't begin by looking at Jesus' death, feeling great pity for him, and then walking away, as the man with the sponge did. Discipleship begins by looking at Jesus on the cross and seeing something really crucial and not just literally, something victorious, something you need deeply, something which you can't just walk away from, but which you must carry with you, something that will shape your life in every way. That God so loved the world, including you, that he sent his only Son. And it is in his death that he is truly revealed as the Son of God. Mark really wants you to stand at the cross just for a while and to ponder your response. What are you going to do with what you see?